Hello and welcome back to Fuse Coding with me, your host, edA-qa. I'm one of the key programmers for the layout and animation at Fuse, and I'll be using this tool again to keep working on our animations. If you don't know Fuse, it's a product for doing product design and deployment for mobile. It's a wonderful tool based on reactive programming, and you'll see a lot of that in the show as we go on. For example, this is an example of reactive programming. Well, this is actually just the declarative part. The reactive part is in the other pages. We'll get there in a bit. And this is where we left off last time. So in this show, what we're looking at is we want to do some basic animation. Let me roll this down a bit here. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the show or join our Slack community afterwards and ask there as well, or follow me on Twitter and just point out comments or what you'd like to know and what type of examples you'd like to have us do in the future. Thanks very much to my new subscription. I couldn't see who you are yet, but I'm sure I'll get there. And let's take a look at where we were last time. I've actually changed a little bit since last time. We weren't here. If we remember, we were more on this screen. And we ended up with this little email icon. We got rid of the eggplant, had an angry face for a while for the guy that wanted us to get rid of the eggplant. And then we added several effects to this, and this is this page over here. We have several animations, and it's a bit complicated to look at the code because we crammed a whole bunch together. Typically it won't be so complex, but we have this one, and let's look at some of those animations. So the first one was we added an email. It pops around and it goes up and we can clear it. This was a simple demonstration of a timeline, and we have that in the new email right here. It was a rather complex timeline using various keyframes, but then it has that pleasing result of popping around the side. We also added an alert that pops out down the bottom. And we cleared it. In this one we had animated both forwards and backwards, so it wasn't the add email. We made it only one way, and we intentionally did that just to show a difference. And this alert goes forward and backwards. And then since we ran out of UX ideas or UI things, we made this one do this type of thing, and then it clears away. And that was showing another style using add and removing animation. And as we mentioned, we were kind of abusing the adding and removing animation here. It's not really, I'm going to add the note for this, not really recommended here. Just more of a note. And today I'll show you where is a recommended place to use adding and removing animation, so we actually have something worthwhile. Quick rundown in the other ones we had the red pulse, we had a bounce, we had a bounce right, and we had a shake, and we had another pulse, which is pulse and size, and we had, I don't know what that was anymore. Some boring example of a custom easing, and then the swing, which is a rather complicated one, which shows a fake sort of physical effect, nice smooth effect, pleasing to look at because it's all nice and smooth. And those were the effects we had. Now, today what I want to work on are the list animations. Okay, I have a very basic page control. I said they're not recommended here, so where are the adding and removing animations recommended? And for that I created a list page. And if you want to see how I scroll over there, first of all, I changed our main view. I just threw in a basic page control, and it has sliding by default. Normally you'd have some sort of toolbar or tab bar, but I didn't want to throw that in yet. We can throw that in later. And I made this the main page since we're mainly working on this today and we don't have to look at the other one. And I've set up a basic view in the list page. The list page iterates through some items and shows an ID very, very roughly. I didn't want to do much before the show. And I also converted the code to use our new model to produce these lists, so it's a lot cleaner, and I'll be using that on the main page as well. So let's look at how this works briefly before I get to the animation part. Okay, this was supposed to be open. Close off box page, close off main view. The list page has a scroll view as usual. You can scroll up and down, but there's not enough there yet. The dock panel here is preparation for the panel at the bottom. The stack panel, this is our list of items, and then we have a list of items, and each item has a height and a color. and it has a text value for the ID. And I also have this clicked removed. If you click on it, they go away. This will be important for the animation. And this is what the code looks like. We have the list page, and it's very basic JavaScript code. These items, we have an item class. This is using the newer JavaScript syntax. I think it's ES6 with classes and default. This is documented on our website in the new model system. You'll notice the observables are gone. The difference is that this items is tracked automatically for us. We don't have to do much with that. Again, if you have questions for this and how to convert a code, please ask in the forums and in Slack, because it's a much simpler model. It's not entirely complete yet. It's still a little bit of experimental. We have some features we need to add still, and you'll see them in the code for this if you look at them, where I have a few workarounds for now. And remove finds the item, removes it. Okay, so this is the basics. So we need to add one more thing to this page first in the stock panel. We need to make a way that you can add stuff to this page. So let's put a panel at the bottom. Let's give it a very sort of neutral color for now, and let's give it a stack panel. And what I want to do is I want to add an add button to this. And I'll just use whatever default layout is. They don't look so pretty at the moment, but it'll be good enough. And we'll do add. And we should get, whoops, yeah, it's helpful if I dock it to the bottom. Okay, and we have this add button here. And let's add some padding just to see it. The default button is based on the iOS pattern, where they just have basic text, and you can see it over here as well. And what did we actually do in main view? We created buttons in inbox view as well. Or, yeah, it looks a little bit different here. I'm not clear why it actually has a different color over here. Okay, in any case, we can see it down there. You'll see my cursor when we go over and click it. But we have to add the add function as well. We don't need args here because we don't care. And this .items push new item. And our items have no properties at the moment. So we'll do the add there. And it's going to call this function add the item. And then it adds the new item here. And you can remove the items as well. And whoa, what did I do wrong? Alright, I think I've seen this problem before. This might give us a little bit of trouble. It's one of the ones one of my colleagues is working on right now. In certain cases, if you remove things, when you remove the second one, it may crash. It's not entirely clear when it does it yet. Okay, but so you have to bear with me. These are also on experimental branches. I tend to do that for streams. I was actually working on a newer feature recently, and I just forgot to update this to the release branches, which, you know, means there could be instabilities. We go through a lot of testing before we actually release it. So bear with me if there are a few errors. The restart should be fast. But let's look at what we want to do with the adding and removing. Let's cover the most basic one here first. And let's separate this out because this is getting too deep in the stack. Let's create a class down here and give it a class name, and we'll use it up there, list item. We're going to copy this out. Classes are the way you'd split things between files and make your code more structured. This class can be in any file, it doesn't have to be in here. I'm just sticking it here because we're using it here, and the rest of the code is very small. So this should have the same results we have now. There's no visual change, except you see the numbers may have gone up because it refreshed the JavaScript model and these new items. So let's first off make this a little bit better. So let's do, it's a little bit brighter. We're going to make the height more like 50 so we can add some things. And we're going to make these dock panels just to give it a bit of variety. And this rectangle is going to be in the background. Layer equals background. I just like showing the variety because these are a lot of things you'll typically do in the layout. You'll be combining a lot of these items together. So if any of these properties are new, feel free to ask as well. Dock panel, and we'll do padding equals 5. And now to simulate an icon, we'll also stick an icon off to the left. Rectangle dock equals left width equals, let's just say Well, actually, let's try it this way. Can we do box sizing equals fill aspect to make it the same size as the height, color, and let's make this one, I don't know, DFD, very, very light colors. Give it also a corner radius to match the border it's in. And yeah, we may have screwed that up because I don't have that there. Let's just give it an explicit width then. Uh-oh. I think that should have worked. Where'd it go now? Oh, I have some stuff running here. Ignore that. Chrome keeping a signal running on me when it shouldn't have. Okay, so I did something wrong there. Something went a little bit weird. And we have dock left, left. That should have worked. Let's refresh this in case I got some noise in the reloading. Well, this is a bit odd. What is going on here? Something went weirdly wrong. Let's go back to what we had before. So that's in the background. Whoa, what happened here? Alright, that's the old one. Come on. Okay, I don't know what I had to check. I screwed something up here. Stack panel, items, list item, list item. That should have been fine. Background. Oh. This makes sense. Because I put this in the background, it no longer has a height. The background's not supposed to have a height. You have to have something inside of it that has a height. So basically I've created an item that has no height, but the background forces itself to be that high. And that's why we get the weird visuals. And this should have worked then. This should have worked with box sizing. Let me try that again. To make it square. That should take the width of its parent, but it may not because, yeah. Okay, so that works. And we're going to put the ID in there. Well, let's put the ID on another line. Take the text value out of here, and in this panel is where we'll stick the text, just somewhere in here. So you can at least see how the layout works then, and I have probably an extra rectangle here. Okay, and it puts the text in there. And so we may want to put a margin in here, a left margin to keep it separated from that rest. Hello, Studio C. Glad you can join the show. Today we're doing animations with lists. And so far I don't have an animation, I have just a basic one. And this is something I have filed a report for. Oddly, some of these files by the live refresh don't quite pick up the margin. Hello, Crowsbow. Welcome to the show. And so you see the new items get the old margin and the new ones don't. It's a little bit weird sometimes, and I filed the issue. It's one of those minor ones, and when you do a refresh it goes away, and there's only specific combinations where you can get it, and it's not a big issue at the moment. So we have some basic text there, and that should be enough, but let's add something just more so we at least have something. And I don't know, let's add some more text, just say some more text on another line just to show something of interest. And we'll put some wrapping on this just in case we have some wrapping. Let's see if we, okay. And we'll take off this height to the stack panel because now we actually have content. Alright, and you notice the icon refreshes to the size, so it figures out the size and it figures where to go. You shouldn't rely on that too much because it's very easy to get in situations where it doesn't quite do what you want. It does something very consistent, but it's hard to explain. And so you should, if you have a fixed size for the icon, which is very typical, usually your icons and stuff have a fixed size. They don't grow with this text. Then you might want to use it instead. I'm using the basic XML highlighters. for Sublime. So Studiosi is asking. So this is the basic XML that Sublime is using. The UX code, it has a few variations from XML, but very little, and so far the XML highlighters have worked just fine. And you can see at the bottom here XML, tiny, and the tiniest code down here at the bottom, you can see the XML. Okay, so now we have some stuff. So now let's do the one basic animation. We have it down here, and this is where I want to say this is one of the cases where we want to adding animation. The user presses add that, and we want something to appear on the screen. And so let's do the basic one. I'm going to move relative to the size and relative to the parent size, and I'll explain in a second. Duration equals 0.3, easing equals cubic in, and every time I say in, I usually end up meaning out, but let's try in first. Okay, and you notice slide in, that's just that's going to happen sometimes. It usually shouldn't. It shouldn't in this case. I can't remember. Yeah, let's ignore that for now. So when you add an item, you can see it slide in, and actually I think cubic in is the right one. So items slide in from the side. I'm going to exaggerate the duration again, mainly for the stream. I mean, I can see it slide in, but at 30 frames per second over this stream, you might not see it slide in on your side. Let's remove them, and oops, I made a mistake. Did I remove the click handler? I might have, didn't I? Yeah, right here. Click equals remove. Now we can remove them again. Okay, but you know remove just suddenly makes them go away. And so we want to do the same with remove. But let me explain this animation first. If you look carefully at the animation, you'll notice they slide in from the right. They slide into the right. I don't know if my hand lines up with what the screen did. Hopefully I'm sliding to the right. But I said move x equals 1. And that would sound like it's sliding to the right. But this is the case where one of the animations is backwards. And we have this parent size. This x, adding animation is played backwards because it makes the most sense. Our layout goes in its default position. We have what's called a rest state. And so this whole part here defines where is it when nothing is happening. And this is where we want it. We want it right in the position it is now. This is what it should look like when nothing's happening to it. So adding animation describes a deviation from this state. Well, what is the difference from it? And in this case it says, well, it'd be really awkward to try and specify some sort of backwards motion here. So what we do is we say adding animation actually runs backwards. So if you played adding forward, it would go to the right. And so you think of it that way, how would it play forward? And now let's play it backwards. And that's how adding animation works. And the 1 means relative to something. So this means the full width of the parent size. And we say parent size here, not size, because we have this margin and border. It actually has to slide far enough over right to escape its parent area. So if we just say size, we can do that, for example, the size of itself. You might be able to catch it on the side here when it comes in, that it actually starts already on the screen. And I can exaggerate this by limiting the size. Max width equals 100. Let's see what happens there. Alright, this is the restart issue I said. And, oh come on, it went away from me. Oh, let's restart, sorry. Now when I add 1, this is totally exaggerated. You should probably be able to see it a bit more obvious. It just suddenly appeared there. It didn't actually slide in from the side. And where if you had parent size it would. But I'm going to revert this now just so you're aware of the difference. And you have those two options there. And now we're going to do the same for removing animation. And we want it to move in the other direction now instead though. We want to go -1. And removing animation plays forward. It's a lot more basic. And now when we click on one, it goes the other way. Okay, and this is the removed issue. Again, I have a colleague working on that, but let's look at remove, and it slides off to the right. Now, there's one thing that happens that you may have noticed is when you click on it, when it doesn't crash, it just suddenly jumps up the rest. There are two options to handle this. The easiest one is to put a layout animation on the rest of them. We know the size isn't changing, so we're going to say move. And vector equals 1 means all of it, x and y. There is also a z, because we do support some z leveling, but in most cases it usually just means x, y, because we have a flat screen. And relative to equals position change. Duration equals 0.6, and we'll say easing equals, I don't even know what the easing should be here. Let's just choose another one at random. Let's choose bounce. Bounce in, bounce out. Bounce out. Okay. Alright, so bounce out may not have been the best option. Let's do a smoother one, a simpler one, and do sinusoidal in. The in-out, I usually just kind of try one and try the other when I notice it's backwards. And there is a logical way to go about it, but I usually it's quick for me to test the in-out because of all the adding forward, backwards, playing these things in directions. It's sometimes hard to logically reason whether I want it in or out, and it's so fast in the preview just to test both of them. Okay. So now they slide back up. Now we can do another thing. We can insert one in the middle. Say a new item comes in between here. This gets a bit more complicated with the animations, but it should work. So the first thing we want to do is we want to at the bottom add another button. Insert, clicked equals insert. And I'm going to put some item spacing on here now. Item spacing equals 10. And we'll live with the bad colors for now. And in our add, we're going to do an insert now. And we'll stick it in a fixed location for now. How do we do this again? Splice. Let's say item 0, 0, no items removed. I still really dislike the JavaScript syntax for adding or inserting. It's weird. I'm sorry. Okay. You'll see the weirdness there, and that happens in reload. But let's try and insert now. So now they slide down, but the new one comes in immediately, whereas the one at the bottom comes at the bottom. Now this gets really hard to address. We can remove them all again and see if it crashes. Yeah, then I'll restart it. You can here in the adding animation. What you could do is you could say a delay of 0.6. And this might actually be backwards. No, because we're going backwards, we need to add the delay at the end. So we're just going to extend the duration of this, and I can explain why that works. Okay. Now it works for insert now probably, right? So now we have the insert coming up, and it comes into the display. The problem is when we add it to the end, it also has that delay. And you notice it does pop up there right away, which is a little bit weird, which means the parent size is wrong. Okay, so what I mean is if you saw it, this is getting annoying with the list, sorry about that. It has to do with the model mode. I could have stuck with observable for now, but when you see add, you notice it appears on the side. So watch on the side, I don't know if you can see it very well. It first appears, and this is because our parent panel has a margin on it, which means the parent is too small. So let's stick a padding on it instead, which keeps the parent size but makes the children smaller. Now when we do add, you don't see it until it comes in. It's really off because we have the right size now. And insert's going to do the same thing. Okay. And this is one option. But again, it fixes it at the bottom, and just keep ignoring that refresh thing. It's something, again, that we have the issue and we have to fix it for. And when you add at the bottom, though, you have, yeah, it delays. Now, I'd like to say I have a really good solution for this, but I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have a great solution for this one. We need to know a way to say, well, if it's a new one at the bottom, how do we do different adding animation? And there are options here with binding and stuff, but they're all very difficult. So at the moment, I suggest either just sort of, live with it or come up with a different adding animation. And there's another one you can do in the adding animation. You could, for example, do scale y equals 0, duration equals 0.6. This one will be a bit weird, but it's one you could try. So when you insert now, it sort of squeezes in there. And that's a different effect. I mean, it's in a, and at the end, it comes and squeezes in at the end. Oh, this is getting kind of annoying. I can't show you the deleted anymore. Yeah, this is getting really annoying. Sorry about that. I mean, and this is another effect you can do, and I just wanted to show that as well. And that's, yeah, okay, sorry. Removing is getting hard, so we're just going to do adding. And why don't I make actually a clear button so we have a better workaround to that defect at the moment. I'm going to create a clear button. And I think this actually fixes it, but then we see them all remove at once. Clear. And we'll just clear all of them. So now when we press clear, they all go away. Then we can add a bunch more. Then we clear them all. Insert, probably not wise. Yes, all this. I have a reliable repro on this one now, and actually I think on the issue, I think it's on the issue as well. These issues are public, by the way. If you're ever interested in the deep technical details of what we discuss, the FuseLabs issues are public. And if you're really just interested in like prototyping and doing stuff, I don't recommend reading them. But if you do want technical details, and so now insert goes up there, and so we have these items that kind of squeeze into place, and then we can clear them all. And so that does the adding and removing animation, and those are the basic ones. And there are ways to add more. And let me show you one other approach here, so we can. Sometimes you have items that you may want to have a different actual animation, not based on the position, but just different items. And so now we're going to create two items. Right now we have one item type. Now I want to create two of them. I'm going to say just, let's say chat item, constructor, and I have to look it up because I've forgotten how to do the extends. Is it extends? Crossbow, these are all working apps. This is all working app. I just don't have business logic in the end, but you can press the export button, and this will go to the phone up here, export for Android or iOS, and that will all work. And this is all release code right now as well, so other than that one defect, which will be fixed, there's another mode to do this as well, which avoids it. But yeah, this is all live. The preview is a bit slower than deploy, and I bet that defect's not there in deployed mode. But yeah, this is not just a showcase. This is all the standard code we have. Again, I'm using some release branches, so there's some weirdness, but I'm not using any of the new features at the moment. All right. So let's. I hope that answers your question. So now I'm going to create two items here, an add item and a chat item. And I think it was super. I don't know. I'm going to find out. I've been working in so many languages lately, I tend to forget, and I usually have a cheat sheet, but I seem to have misplaced it. And we're going to give them both a type now. This dot type equals chat. This dot type equals add. So we're going to add a chat item, chat item, chat item, and an add item. And let's do add chat item, and we need another one to like maybe insert add, or insert add. Let's put this somewhere in the middle, new add item. Yeah, I probably do need to do that all this, yeah, sorry. I got that up here. Oh no, I even forgot it there. Item extends item. It just extends everything, the whole world. This item does everything. So now I'm going to save this and hope something comes back up. Which might not, because if you change too much at once... I said chart item somewhere. Chat item. Okay, there we go. Now they all look the same, but because we have this type on them, we can do different effects for them. This is up in the... Let's change list item to chat item. And then let's add an add item. And we're going to we're not going to let the user remove these. This is our business model. We're sticking ads in it. And we say add item. And we have to do one more thing here is we want to say match key equals type. And we're going to give these templates now. Template equals chat. UX template equals add. So depending on what type we have, it's going to instantiate a different item. Yeah, the rush streams I do again tend to be early in the evening. And this is what I tend to do on Mondays and Wednesdays during the day. And there's just a whole bunch of different languages, so you can see different languages as well. This one will be a lot more visual than the Rust one, obviously, because I'm working with animations. It's a nice change from just the algorithms. Okay, so we're going to do this padding for this add item. And let's just quickly throw some color on this so you can see the difference. Let's make a nice crush of purple add. And I think I have a mistake somewhere. No, so now you can see the ad came in. We'll clear them all. I'm not sure why insert works. It inserts in the middle of nowhere, even though there's nothing there, but we can't add ads yet. Oh, I should have said there's something else. Never mind. So insert add. We're going to make something called insert add as well. Oops, wrong key. Insert add. So the ads, we can insert more of those, and they have no animation or anything yet. And the ads always go in the same place. So maybe we should make that a little bit more interesting, and we'll say this dot add location equals, just say 0. This dot add location plus equals, say 2. So every time we'll insert an add somewhere else, this dot add location equals 0. So if I add a whole bunch of items, then I insert the add, they'll just show up in random places. But you notice the ads just appear unlike the other ones because they're a completely different type. They don't share any of these animations. We can also fix this a little bit. What we can do is we can make a base class for this. The UX class equals list item. And this is one of the common ways that you can style things. And instead of making a dock panel here, we'll make this a list item. And so we're deriving from our own special classes. List item. List item. List item. And we'll move the animations in there. We may not want all of them in there, but at first that's a good starting point. And in this add, we're just going to take away the color again. And what we may want is we want a rectangle now. Rectangle layer equals background. Stroke color equals, just make it a light gray. Stroke width equals 1. And I don't know what I want to stick in this add panel. And we'll make it a very slightly lighter color. And I'll stick a star in it. I'll see what size the star is, and in color, we'll just make it a bright color. Don't know what's in the ad. Okay, and it's a bit small because I didn't give it a height. So let's give it a height of at least, or yeah, just say height equals 50. Nope, no, I have to make that, this is filling it up, so I have to make the whole thing here. Give the rectangle a height of 50. And again, I made the same mistake because I put that in the background. This star is supposed to be in the foreground, not in the layered background. X, V. Because again, this rectangle is in the layered background, so it cannot contribute to the size of the thing. It's one of the limitations of a background item, and that makes sense because it's supposed to be in the background. It's not supposed to contribute to size. Okay, so now we have the star in the middle. And if we add a star, we can show up, insert more, and we can add more stars. And this shows that you have different items. And we'll leave the layout animation, but let's move the adding animation to be different. I'm going to stick the adding animation here. List item has its own. Our chat item. And I'll get to that in just a second. O2 deprived, oxygen deprived. And adding animation, let's do just the scale here. So now if we've added a whole bunch of other ones and we insert the adds, where'd they go? Sorry. So we have this other animation for the adds. And for some reason it goes weird. That might be the scale thing. 0.01, maybe a long-standing issue. Sorry about that. Okay, and so the add insert's right in the middle now instead. And I have some weird issue where it stops adding at this point. I got to figure that one out. Okay, but let's go to the question. I'll move this up to now for this. It shouldn't have made a difference, but it might. Nope, no, don't do that. Okay, so for oxygen deprived's comments, are there any garbage collection concerns when deleting, removing objects? The easy answer is no. We take care of all of it. And by what I mean is that the objects backed in JavaScript, they have a garbage collector, and at the high level we don't maintain these objects. So other than the defect that's sometimes showing up we're having, there is no actual problem, and that'll be fixed, of course. The actual memory concerns you can add and remove, and the each takes care of all of this. This each actually has a reuse option as well. We're not seeing it here, like reuse equals frame. I don't have this. That means if you delete and add one in the exact same frame, it's actually going to use the same object. So this is an efficiency thing as well, that we have many modes here when dealing with lists and scrolling lists and adding and removing objects, that nothing disappears and we don't have to keep recreating them. This works in scrolling as well. This each feature is really kind of a powerhouse feature, and it does that, and we've tested it a lot. We don't have leaks on there. On the JavaScript side, if you don't have any more references to the object, it should be going away, with the one caveat that when you click to, ignoring this error again, when you click to remove something, until that item's actually removed, the memory, of course, will be sitting around for it. Removing animation has that, it doesn't actually remove right away. Removing animation defers removal of the item. But this should have no impact on the actual memory, unless the removing animation somehow just never finishes, but that's, you can't normally create that. So the duration removing is still there. And we have several reordering features. We have lots of demos showing reordering, and so far I don't think we have any outstanding issues for memory on these lists. So deleting, removing objects should be totally fine. I hope that answers your question there, oxygen deprived. If you do see any issues with this by playing with it, just let us know. They get fairly high priority for us. But at the moment I think it's fairly stable because we use this feature for basically everything. Okay, so I was showing if you insert the add, you now see they have a different adding animation. So the normal items come in from the right, and the insert adds, they squeeze in the middle. And the scaling looks a little bit weird just because because it's scaling at the same time it's moving, right? And it's hard to visualize what's happening because of this layout animation and how things move around. It's not entirely clear where the positioning of all of these is. And this is because when you add an add, its space is actually this space, so it's scaling from here in the middle, even though this one's moving down. So you might want to do something like this. We want to say the anchor, actually, how do we do this now? We can do this way. This is another option that's used not so often. Limit sizing. Limit height equals 0%. And instead of scaling it, we can change the this.limit height to 0%. And if I remember this correctly, this should make a difference. I typed something wrong. Box sizing, is it just limit maybe? Okay. Oops. Okay, the default limit height should be 100%, obviously. Now, let's see what that actually does. That you'll see a slight change in the animation difference now. You see a slight wasn't supposed to be that slight change. Wow, it's not working as I wanted. I haven't set this up correctly then. I've never done it in this situation before. I've always used it for sliding panels. And somehow it's gotten stuck here. So I've never used it inside an adding animation. So let's ignore that idea. I'm going to pretend I just ignore my mistake. And go back to the scaling one. Oops. We'll leave that there. And there's that slight overlap at first, but we'll have to deal with that for now. There is a feature, again, I said plan. Yeah, all this has a point about the limit sizing 100%, but the limit's supposed to work differently. The limit's supposed to pass it through. It was built for this purpose, and I've never used it in this before. I built it all for the sliding panels from the sides, and it's not like specifying the height is 100%. Limit says, well, how much of the normal height that you're going to get should you have? But it might not work in this case, and I'll have to figure out why that is. I'm actually going to make a note about that. Because I'm curious myself. Well, we have many other options to do here. And again, this isn't necessarily... If you have a list like this and you start doing this, inserting ads in the middle, you just may have set up the UX anyways. Their attention won't be drawn to the fact that there's a slight overlap. The attention will be drawn to the fact, like, why is there suddenly a big ugly star? Or why did you insert an ad? And there's lots of options to play with here. But I think for animation that's okay for now. I wanted to go on to the next one here. We had loading. Well, how do we show that something's loading? What if these items are loading for a while? So let's go back to the JS and let's add something fake to this second. Let's say this chart item. I'm going to say this.loading equals true. And set timeout. Does the time come first? I always hate this. I always hate guessing what the time is. And it's in milliseconds for some reason. And make a function like this. This.loading equals false. This is one very manual way, and there's a cleaner way to do this, but I want to show this first. This.loading equals false. And actually, this might be the only option right now due to another feature we have pending. And so we can do something here at the end. Okay, Right. Right, it was in the inconvenient location. This seemed that seemed convenient, so it comes at the end. When you do lambdas, if you're not doing lambdas, it's not a big deal. And let's put an indicator. Let's just put giant text on for now. Loading. Font size equals 50. Alignment equals center. Okay. And we don't appear to be loading, so I've done something wrong. This dot loading equals true, this dot loading equals false. Well, let's just never turn it to false in case I have that timeout wrong for some reason. I don't think I do, but maybe I do. Or maybe it's just going too fast. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does it go away? No, it doesn't go away. So what does our log say? Unexpected token. What have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong there? Is it a single? No, it's a double arrow. Let's try single arrow. No. Okay, that's the unidentified token. So single arrow. What is my unidentified token? I'm sorry, I can't make this font bigger here. Set timeout. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Trying to see what I've done wrong. Why is it there's something wrong on my token? To rule out any random errors, I'm going to do a refresh of the whole thing. Now it didn't complain, but let's do a new viewport. Alright. Maybe I should reduce the timeout as well. Okay, it's not calling my timer. This is concerning me a little bit. I'm pretty sure I did this before and it was actually calling the timer. Which is weird. I don't know why it wouldn't. I'll figure out this timer issue, not to get sidetracked because we're focusing on animation now. The fact that this has the wrong code indicates that there might be... Right. Let's create another function then. Clear load. We'll do this with this dot loading equals false. Okay, and there's something... The syntax highlighter has also picked up something wrong. But okay, let's do... Where do we have main view? Let's get rid of the remove item so we can get rid of that for now. And on the individual item, we can also add a clicked handler inside the while true. Clicked handler equals, what did I call it? Clear load. Okay. So at least I have a workaround for now. I don't know why the set timeout's not working. This should be working in theory. But it keeps giving me the syntax error. What have I done wrong? Okay, I'm going to look this one up. I'm curious as to why it's not... Set timeout, no. I like the MDM references. There's nothing particular about it. Set Java timeout with a lambda. That should work. Or arrow function. Oh. Do I actually need those brackets? Is this what it's complaining about? Do I actually need those? Quite possibly. Okay, so we did timeout, and we called this .loading with false, and this is wrong, and I want to explain this first of all. Let's do this .cleared load, and this is a framework detail. And now you see it works. I'm going to make it clear a bit faster first of all. The reason it didn't work before is that our instrumentation of this to check for changes only works along function bounds. And you call a function on the object, we scan for changes. And this timeout, this is not a function on the object. Therefore, it won't check for it. So you should actually just pass it off to an actual function and see the timeout then. Now we have an actual loading. We can get rid of the quick fixes here, put that back and make that actually remove. And so this loading animation, we could do something differently now with it. And the one that came up in the forum today was, while we're loading an item, can we show it sort of fade back and forth? And I'm going to make this duration really long again, just so we can see it. And let's go down and see what type of animation we can add here. Let's make a panel. We'll make it 100 wide. And the request in the thing was to fade it in and out. And there's no real way to fade away something. You can't like selectively apply a mask differentiating. Even if you could, that would be really slow. So the option here is we're going to fake it with a linear gradient. 0, 0, and it'll be a horizontal gradient, 1, 0, and gradient stop. And we're going to make this all white and transparent at one end. Offset, I think, or at. And in the middle, we're going to make it all white. The reason I'm making it all white is because that's our background. This is how we're going to fake it. Spell gradient wrong, of course. Gradient stop color equals 0. And we're going to line this off to the left. It has a width, so let's see what happens with that. Okay, and we have it inside the wrong place, but you can see sort of the gradient. We're going to actually have to change the padding situation here, because this has to go on the top. So if we need to get this animation working, we're going to have to get rid of the padding here. Or we can extend the margin. That's possible as well, but I prefer to make it cleaner this way. Put these together. Control X, V, No. We're going to have to group this and get the layering right to get this effect right. And this will be the dock panel here as well. We don't really use the other dock panel. It's a bit of a waste, but that's okay. And padding, that should be okay. Whoa, what's it doing? And now you can see the whites through there, but it's still not in front of everything, and that's because we have it here in the back. Now you could change the ordering here, but we also have another thing, overlay or layer equals overlay, which sticks it in the front. And now it's in the front. You can see it there. It's sort of blurring out, and it makes it look semi-transparent. It's a fake effect, and we'll have this for 10 seconds. And what we can also do here is while true loading, we're going to put another loop on this one while visible. While visible is just a general way of saying while it's visible, but this is always going to be visible as long as it's loading. Cycle target equals, let's do this, UX name equals, let's call it fade. And this is going to fail because I need to put this all in a panel, so let's stick this all in a panel first of all. Sorry about this, I'm making this really not perfect. I haven't used them at keyboard in a few days again. I'm using the wrong one. I just press tab. Sorry. I have Control-I in a Kate editor, even though I can use tab there as well, and I keep messing it up, and this one doesn't support it, so I get confused. So we have this panel, we have linear gradients, and now we have a name, text value loading, and we're going to target fade.x, the position. In low, we're going to say something like -10, and high equals, oh, not -10, this is actually relative 1 to 1.1 with a frequency of, I don't know how fast it should load, frequency, let's just start it with once per second, that's the default. And I have an error, probably. Background must be solid color. Panel, I'm missing a panel. And what error do I have? I don't know why that's from there. Okay, I want to see what errors I actually had. That's a bit weird. While visible should have worked. Except background must be a solid color. That's weird. Aha, because a panel. Sorry about that. I forgot that panel can't take a linear gradient. So we should change it to a rectangle. Now we've confused it again. But that shouldn't have actually mattered. Something weird went there. So try to figure out why this isn't actually fading back and forth. Okay, we don't technically want to do that anyways, so let's put the translation here instead. X equals 0, UX name equals trans. This would actually simplify what I did before. Trans.x. And, no, that made sense. Because it wasn't relative to anything. I was literally alternating between 0.1 and 1.1 point on the screen, so you probably couldn't see it. Neither could I, relative to equals size. And we'll do it that way instead. Okay. And now you can see that sort of loading. And I have no idea what's this doing down here, so I'm going to just close that and make it go away. So it's going back and forth. It's not going far enough, and it's because it's relative to this rectangle, which is not what we want. We want the translation on the whole panel. But not the text. Okay, so this is where we're going to have to start playing with it a little bit. We don't want it on the text, though. So let's put the text back outside of here. Put the panel in here. We want to translate this panel. And, whoa, I broke something. They were working on the beach ball error, as we call it, because this icon is never good. And I'm just going to close this. They were working on some of these errors this morning. That's why I said, again, I have this a rather experimental branch. We should have this fixed before this version is released. Okay, is it actually loading? Or did I forget to close the last one? Let me cancel this again. Control C. Quit properly. Go away first of all. Quit the daemon as well. And let's see what comes of that. Wait for it to load a bit. Again, when I have the OBS program loaded, everything runs a bit slower because the MacBook doesn't have that much composing power, and when about 150% of it's given over to the streaming, that doesn't give us much left to do anything else. Okay, come on, there we go. So now we have that sort of loading effect there. It goes forward and backwards. It's probably a bit too fast. You may want to slow it down. And it may not be wide enough. You may want to make the width maybe instead of 100. You also may want to make it variable. Let's make it 20%. And the gradient stops in the middle. We actually want to see a nice white bar, so let's make them wider as well. Let's see what happens with that. Okay, and we probably don't want to go all the way over to 1.1. We just did the 0 because it was already at 100, so let's put the anchoring here as well at 50%, 50%. This way it'll position it better than what we want, and we can really go to 0 to 1, and that'll make it overlay correctly in both ends so it's properly balanced. Did it actually save? I don't think that actually saved it. So now we have it going from both ends. And that would show the loading effect if you really wanted it. Perhaps you want to make it even wider and put some gray in there. That's another option, so it actually fades out the gray. And how can we do that actually so it goes even longer on white? I'm trying to think of how else I want to do this. Put one at the end as well. And let's just see how this looks. I mean, these are just random sort of effects, what we can do with it. This was to show the general loading effect. If you actually want to play with this a bit more, you would actually think a bit longer about the colors. I'm just throwing in something quickly. And that's a heavier banding because it's not very wide. And this might look better if you make it really wide. Okay, we have to reload that. It's just not catching it sometimes. So this kind of looks a little bit better if it's really wide, and you can see it's kind of a loading effect. And then it goes away. I don't know if that loading there is so good, like the actual text. And this will be for all the items. They'll have their own loading. I don't know if it's the greatest effect. It makes it show something, but I show you how you can do this type of effect, how you can fake it, how you can do that loading. And what you may actually want is, because that text is kind of in the way, let's stick it on the bottom instead. So it's actually hidden behind it. So the loading actually goes away as well. And I have a feeling this looks even better if it's even wider. Make this a little bit brighter. And reload them again. So now you can really see the item disappearing, and there's some text still in front of it though, isn't there? And that's what's jarring. We're not really in the front. And that's because I screwed something up here, because when I put it in this panel, this was supposed to be in the overlay. So we still have stuff there. So now it really disappears. So now you really have that fading in and out effect. And if we add a new one, it'll start in the new one. So you can have each item loading on its own, as many as you want, and they'll go away in 10 seconds. and I'm not exactly sure on exactly how you want the colors of this, but this is one way you can do it with the gradient. And the reason it makes it look like it's fading away is strictly because we match the colors. We're not actually making it fade away. And I'll leave it at that for that one. And this sets that all up. We just put a linear gradient. We put this in the overlay to be in front of everything, even though we're adding it afterwards. And as long as this loading value is true, we have that. And we can put the text on, and I'll make that disappear as well. Cycle is your general purpose thing to make things cycle back and forth when you have any cycling effect. And I wrote a document about that recently, which shows all the different ways you want to do animation, when to do them. And this show is kind of covering all of them. Trying to think of what else we can do. That should be it with this one. We could probably get away without the rectangle now. Because the background's supposed to be a solid brush. I don't know why. It might be complaining because if you do the native host, it won't support the linear gradients in the background. I'm not sure. I'd have to check up why that's giving us that warning. Okay, and so the ads themselves have a different adding effect. And this is also a scroll view, of course. We can add a whole bunch at once. And come down, and it makes... Yeah, okay, that's a fun effect if you add a whole bunch at once. And I mean, it's clear to the user that something's happening at least. Clear them all, let's just add a whole bunch. The loading kind of occupies the... It hides the actual adding animation. So that may be something you don't want. But that's okay. Now, what else can we do with this? What I want to say is that there's a feature missing right now in the model, and it's the same one that's preventing me from refactoring the main page. Is what I wanted to do is use this WhileBusy feature. Because manually managing the loading isn't so much fun. Rather than saying while true, what I really want down here is I want a WhileBusy. And what this requires is something called a busy task. Alright, we better remove that link. There's a busy task. Look at busy task. Or is it just busy now? The busy class. And what the busy class does is this is exactly how the example on busy sets it up so that you say when it's active and when it's not active, and then it gives an example of fetching data. The only issue is that right now these names busy are passed automatically JavaScript tags. This doesn't happen with the model system. The model system you have to pass them explicitly, but and my colleague's actually working on that feature right now. We had a small issue with that and had to remove it from the initial release, but it'll come back right away and we can do that correctly. Or we can also do it directly this way and put the JavaScript inside here, inside the list item, and fake it here as well. So remove the while. So let's try it this way. Instead of using our explicit approach, let's get rid of the true and make it WhileBusy. And we'll use the exact demonstration they give there, and we'll do a busy is active equals true, UX name equals busy. And in this JavaScript now, put this afterwards. Because this is in a class, we can do this. You can mix JavaScript and model together. In some situations, we have to do it right now. We're hoping to avoid that. Now we can do the set timeout. And this is going to have to be the old style because this code doesn't go through the transpiler, I think. I do not remember. Do this one at 10. Let's do this one at 5,000 so we can see it a bit faster. And then you call a function on the busy task saying, I'm done. Deactivate. Now, if I remember correctly, this should work. Unless I typed errors in. Where am I missing that? Line 72. Oh, WhileBusy, yeah. Busy does not have a... Okay, I don't know where that space came from. Okay. So we have the same effect in the end, but we're using a different approach. We're using the busy system. Now you're asking, what's the value of the busy system? What have I gained? Well, busyness has some more values. That busyness also applies to loading images. If there are images loading in there, long ones from a server, you would also include it, not just our JavaScript one. It includes all sorts of busyness. What you can also have is on the entire thing as a whole, because busyness cascades, you can now put WhileBusy and put items somewhere else. And let's just stick one in the bottom right circle. Bottom right, it's 50, height equals 50. Margin equals 10, color equals 800. And what did I do wrong? Width, learn how to spell width. My most common spelling mistake is that one. We're going to get this out of the way. So you see it's red here now? And when it goes away, that busy indicator goes away. And if we add a new one, because this one's loading, a red indicator comes back up. Insert add doesn't create busyness, but an insert will. And as long as there are any of them loading, this is going to stay there. And as soon as they're all gone, the red dot will disappear. This is the true advantage of the WhileBusy. It's far more flexible than just having a manual variable. And what we'll probably do is, I wonder if... Yeah, you could probably bind this to a variable, but you don't want that because you want it to start busy. But let me experiment for a second. Let me experiment if this would actually work. We have the variable called loading, but initially it's not defined. So as long as it's not defined, we're going to say it's still true. This is an experiment. I have no idea if this works. And it does. All right, that actually works. So that's another option. You can bind it, but don't forget to do the question. The reason is because when you first have this binding, this loading won't be defined yet because it hasn't come from JavaScript yet. You don't want this to start as false. You want it to start in the busy state. The other option is this one here to deactivate it. Which model you choose, obviously, you don't like this one because this is the old one, but there will be another way to do it once the new feature's done. This explicit model has a lot of value in many cases because it's sometimes hard to control this, but this one should also work. And we can use this one for now because we don't have the other way of feeding the dependency. And this has the same advantage. Now we have the busy is active. And again, what this does is we say this chat item, it's loading something in the background. And this is only its loading, and we've attached to loading. If there's images loading in here, the busy active also applies to them. And we use the WhileBusy tag to indicate while it's busy, do this. And we've also stuck it in the high level item saying while it's busy, also display something in the bottommost corner, showing that it's busy. And let's make that bottom one a bit more fun as well. We might as well, let's say stroke color and stroke width equals, I don't know, let's say 50. We'll make this brighter. My random color selections. And you can do the same thing here. We can make it again while visible in here. Cycle UX name equals load indicator. Target equals load indicator dot stroke width. Low equals 0, high equals 50, frequency of 1. That might be too fast, but let's find out. So now you have a kind of cheesy loading indicator. But I just wanted to, again, we can show you that you can animate things like stroke width. And you may instead want to have something like angle start equals 0, angle end equal, or angle length degrees. Let's say angle start degrees, use degrees instead. Angle length is 180. And we can now also cycle targets. Let's make the flashing width a bit more subdued. Targets, load indicator dot angle start degrees, 0 high equals 360. I made some sort of syntax error there, yeah. Now I'm pressing a lot of tabs here, like I have a really large font size here, so these lines are very small. Frequency, let's make it spin a bit slower. And now I'm going to stick a different waveform, because the default waveform is sinusoidal, so it'll spin back and forth. I'll get right back to the busy as soon as, and I want to do a sawtooth here, so it makes it look like it's skinning continuously in one direction. Unless I made a mistake. Probably start angle, not angle start degrees. Check that out. Let me look up the reference for circle. Triple E. Oh, no, I don't have a triple E. Start angle degrees. End angle degrees, length, angle degrees. Oh, down here I have the triple E. Yeah, okay, that's the issue. Thanks, Oldest. Let's refresh this, see what happens. Yeah. Is not a valid property path. Huh. That doesn't make sense. Alright. Because I took the wrong name again. So now we have a little bit. It's not really super fancy, but it does something slightly different. And you can see it cycle around. And to answer Oxygen Deprived's answer, is busy globally scoped? Yes and no. This WhileBusy here in this page applies to all of its children. If any of its children inside of it are busy, this WhileBusy will be true. And that's the same with this WhileBusy down here. If you notice this WhileBusy down here, as you add multiple ones, this WhileBusy only triggers for this item. These other items are not triggered on this WhileBusy. So it's a tree-based scope. It goes in the tree down. Wherever your WhileBusy is, something below its busy, then you mark that one as busy. And that lets you have higher and higher things respond to the busyness. That's so if you had multiple pages like we do, something busy on this page is not going to trigger the busyness on this page. You wouldn't see it anyways. But if you had something in the main view, like WhileBusy in the main view, you would also see it, because that also bubbles all the way up. I hope that answers the question as to whether it's globally scoped. There are some cases where you want to stop the bubbling, and if you look at the WhileBusy handler, when it loads, it has several options. In particular, it has isHandled. And what isHandled does is it says, look, stop it here. So that if you did have this layering, you could actually locally treat some and prevent it from bubbling up. And it has this thing called activity and match as well. And you'll have to look at the docs and the examples to see how they're used. But you can fine tune what WhileBusy does, because you may want it to apply to just loading, not image loading. You may want it to apply to processing and not processing. And we're just covering the basics here. The very detailed control comes when you have, usually based on your user testing, that some people say, well, this, it looks like it's loading when it shouldn't, and then you start fine-tuning it when you actually want it to appear. For us, we have the very simple one, that the items themselves are loading, and then the whole thing is loading. And this is based on the busyness in here. And you can have little busy tasks wherever you want. You can have multiple bound variables at different levels, and they'll have different, they'll all contribute to the overall busyness of it. I just add a whole bunch of again, just to see the fun effect. You can remove them too while that's happening. I'm not going to do another one because we have that defect. Oh, it happened at the end. Okay, good. And so busyness is it's a really helpful feature when you're trying to do the user feedback for stuff loading. It provides the way to combine things together, and the WhileBusy flags is much better than handling individual variables, which we did initially. And it's designed around, if you have, again, if you have an image loading in there as well, it'll also handle that. And actually, let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can get an image loading as well. Or, yeah, list page. And let's do that in the ad. Let's find a really big image. Let's just do the images, and let's find something big. Images. I like space images. Alright, so this one here is huge. This is going to take a while for it to download if I view the original image, right? This is, that's 4,000 size picture. Okay. And let's stick that in the ad one. Image URL equals so we have one ad, and I'm going to change the JavaScript so we don't add an ad by default, that we have only chat items so we can see this. Now I'm concerned we're going to see this only once, because the moment we add this, it's going to cache it on us. Pick some of excellent splash. But I wanted a really big space image. But yes, X unsplash, there's a lot of free resources for images, and you should really not, if you're, quick tests like this are great, and I actually tend not to like overloading them, but let's go to that one then. Just to show where it was, what's, Lorem Pixum, okay. How large can we make these ones here, Olis? Well, let's test the space one first, because I said that will probably only work once, and then we'll switch the photo and show it again. So now we have this big image here that's loading, and we want to stretch it. Stretch mode equals uniform to fill, and we don't have a WhileBusy or anything on list item, but the WhileBusy should go up. We'll wait for this to be finished loading, and then we'll insert an ad. I should have killed the timeout. So now we insert an ad, and you notice the loading indicator comes on until the ad's loaded, and then it goes away. And this is the value of WhileBusy. We have a lot of busyness built in. Like loading is also another one, so the user can see that something's happening, and because it's cached, we're not going to see it happen again. Even if we clear it, because I don't have the, it's still going to be cached on us. But we can use the other ones from Lorem item Pixum. Let's try this. Let's see how big these can get first of all. And we can add artificial IDs. Well, I'm getting a random one now. I like random images. What do I do? Random. I like random, and junk equals something. And I'll show you why the junk is there as well. We're sorting in all of the pictures. So let's do it 1,000 by 300. What does that give us? Gives us a picture. Fine, whatever. Let's do 1,000 by, or 500 by 500. Their site isn't responding so fast, so it should be okay. And we put this in here. and we're going to stick it down here, and URL is a string, so this, wait, what happened to random, and %image, and these things have an ID to them. That each item has an ID, so they're going to have unique URLs, and I'm going to abuse their port server for just a second, so that every image we add, every ad, will be a unique image, hopefully. And you see it loading, and then it goes away as soon as it's loaded. Then we add another one, it's loading, and then it goes away. Hey, I suddenly love this site. This is perfect. I hope they don't mind. This is perfect for getting random images. Then another one, and every time it's loading, and you see it loading, and that's again one of the values of WhileBusy is it handles things like that. We probably don't even need, oh, whatever happened. We don't even need that star there anymore, so let's get rid of the ugly star. And I'm going to put a memory policy on here. Just should always do this for pretty much all images except the ones we don't. We had a bit of an argument about what that should be the default. I think this should be the default personally, but we haven't made that yet. So make sure you put memory on using all of them. Side note there. Okay, so let's add an ad. Perfect. Rain. We're never going to see the monkey again because it's random. And let's hope these are all safe for streaming images. It's great. I love this site. And you know what? Let's just make this more fun because we have this in our example. This little rectangle we have over on the left that has a color. Let's make this one an actual image now. And we'll just stick random in here. I don't know what it's loading. We're not going to recognize random, so we're going to have to add an &image. Their server may give random, but if we see the exact same URL, we're going to cache it. ID. So all users get, actually, yeah, let's just do that. And we don't need a big profile picture, typical 50 by 50 profile picture. Let's see if that works. Now we have profile pictures there as well. We could probably reduce the timeout on this loading to 1,000 now. As long as the picture's loading as well, it'll also be loading. So now we have that as well. Pictures there. And this site has just become my new favorite site for demos. So when we get, if we ever get an eggplant, I can say it's not me. The site came up with the eggplant. So now we have random profile pictures as well, and the busyness triggers, and our ads trigger the business. And okay, we're getting duplicate images. We're not. Okay, so we do get some duplicates. And again, this is because we're reusing the IDs. Our IDs in the back end are an item ID, and we increment this every time we restart. What's wrong? Yeah, what was wrong with the eggplant? I like the eggplant. And that was over here. I was using an eggplant. And the only reason I added the eggplant was to show the fact that for, which one is the swinging effect? That for the swinging effect, it's actually rotating. There's a blue box. You couldn't really tell that it was rotating when it goes back up. You couldn't see this effect. But so we got rid of the eggplant and we put email on. So now we have all these images. This is great. We cache them here as well, so it's going to load instantly here. Oh, that one was gone in the cache, you noticed. So let's see if there's another one. Oh, also gone in the cache. And perfect. We have, this shows how to use WhileBusy. We're animating most things, and we should be able to remove them as well, or these ones. And again, we have this error. That's unfortunate. That's being worked on. And so we have all these animations. We showed how to use WhileBusy, and I think I've covered everything I want to do in this stream. I'm sure you might have questions with this, and I'll put the code online, but if you have any questions, please come over to the Slack community and ask them, or on the forum if you have a specific error. I'll make this code available, but if you ever want to see more demos of how WhileBusy works, just ask and I can come up with them again. I don't mind. Now that I have this site for loading infinite images, I'm very happy to show this off. And I'm going to also clean up this demo so it's usable, and I'll put it in a few samples sometime, this whole thing, but I'm going to just keep adding to it for now. and I'll make a proper header so we can go to between the pages easier. And I'll clear this all up, and I'll try to do as much as I can. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the show. The next Fuse broadcast will be next Monday again. Either tonight or tomorrow, I'll be doing the Rust show again. So for those who are interested in Rust, then please tune in. And I thank you very much for your support again. And be sure to follow me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you enjoy going the most, and ask me questions wherever. And I thank you very much again, and I had a lot of fun this time. And thanks all this very much for this new image server. I'm going to go see if I can buy them a copy or something, because I'm certainly going to abuse it a lot. Thank you very much.